Hey, how's it going? It's Judy McKenzie. I am here with the Mindset Warriors. So, have you done any thinking about our last? I'm just doing a little bit of tweaking with this camera, with this phone. Sorry. Um, did you do any thinking? Remember the last time we met and we talked about the autonomic negative thoughts? Ants, ants. We talked about the frequency and how many negative thoughts that we're doing. And I didn't even introduce myself. I'm so sorry. I just assumed that you know who I am, but not everybody does. Anyway, I've got something Facebook thing. Sorry. And here is my support cat. Anyway, I'm Judy McKenzie. I am the founder of Mindset Power Academy and the author of Women Rock the Business World, a business book for women and women entrepreneurs. Anyway, sorry, I leapt right into the subject matter because it's just something that, it's something that I coach my clients on every day. Did you have a chance from our time last week to, hi Sharon, to talk about or to think about when you move into these autonomic negative thinking patterns? And that's what we're going to talk about today, is what creates some of these patterns. But did you have a chance to think about when you were actually doing these? That, because the whole idea of change, there is three key parts to it. And it is identifying that you want to do something different, that whatever you're doing is not working for you. The second, hi Gina. The second is acknowledging that it's not working. And the third is then changing. Now I realize that it's, not as simple as bing, bang, boom, but what is so important is the concept of recognizing the behavior. All right. So last time we chatted, which was 2 weeks ago, and I'm sorry I missed last week. I got all caught up in Halloween fun, and that was just not good. Last time we talked about the frequency. I'm getting lots of loving from my little kitty. The frequency of this negative thinking. And today I want to talk about just a few of the various ways in which we create or we have bad habits that have been created over time, and some of them, were instilled in us when we were very young, but it's around interrupting some of these negative thinking styles. So the first thing I want to talk about in terms of unhelpful negative thinking habits is negative mental filters. Do you, when you wake up and you wake up and you don't want to be awake. You're not necessarily feeling, you're just not feeling the love that morning. And you go to work and you think, oh, this is going to be a really stinky day. I feel like crap. My hair's crooked. My clothes look awful. You're just beating yourself about the head and shoulders with all this negative stuff that is going on. And you probably will have created 10,000 negative ants before you even leave your bedroom. But that's a negative filter. You go into your day, and very often your day will not disappoint. It will continue to be negative. It's the same as when you're late for something and you feel like you can never catch up. That is that mental filter that you put on. So just think about that. Think about when you are in a mind frame where you may have your negative glasses on and you just cannot see anything but things not working out right. Okay, so the second thing that I'm going to be talking about very briefly is mind reading. I know because all these things, I've done them myself many, many times. And some of them I still have to remind myself, the whole mindfulness and mindset concept is not a destination, it's a journey. And we are always on it. So even though I spend much of my time reading and thinking and teaching and doing various things about creating positive mindsets, we all have times where it just ain't happening. And so mind reading is where you think you know what someone is thinking about, especially if it's about you. Where, let's say, for example, in the workplace, somebody may appear to be not as engaged with you as they normally are. And for some people, the first thing that runs through their mind is, what have I done? Have I said something? Have I done something? Um, Adolescence is the worst for that. So if any of you have adolescent kids, you'll appreciate that kind of mind reading, that everybody knows what everybody's thinking and they're not thinking good things about you. And for adolescents, that's very often true. But as we get older, we have a tendency to put too much stock into thinking that we are particularly good mind readers, rather than staying in a state of being curious and thinking, oh, I wonder if, maybe they've got their negative mental filter on this morning. Maybe this is about them and not about me. That might be an interesting approach. The whole idea of mind reading, when you start putting negative ideas about yourself into other people's minds, you can start singing that song, and the ants came marching 2 by 2, hurrah, hurrah, because that's exactly what is happening. You are creating an ant minefield, and it's not going to get any better. So that's something that I would suggest you do some serious thinking about, where when you are wanting to put your own fears into somebody else's mind, don't do it. Don't do it. Okay. The third thing is predicting, that you can predict what the future is going to be, and you're not predicting that's going to turn out rosy. That's where, oh, I see a light at the end of the tunnel. Shite, it's a train. Predicting is, you have to be very, very careful. Predicting and catastrophizing can actually, they overlap a fair bit. Let me tell you a particularly painful but poignant story about predicting and catastrophizing. So catastrophizing, of course, is that, nothing good is going to happen here, that it is only awful. And the predicting is you know this to be true. So many years ago, my deceased husband had a medical mystery condition where he lost the use of his left arm and hand. My husband was left-handed, and he was one of those lefties that his right hand was not connected to his brain. So losing the use of his left hand, he was really debilitated. Anyway, Brock, my ex-husband, was not a particular, he just didn't worry a lot about stuff. I, on the other hand, was in one of the 2 times of my life where I was having brutal panic attacks, huge anxiety, that apparently I inherited that from the Holt women in the family, because they had nerves. And I had nerves. I was going through a very busy time in my life. There was a lot going on, and I was really spiking with panic attacks. So Brock was having this left arm issue. They were starting the neurologist. There was a neurologist and a neurosurgeon, and they were thinking that perhaps he had a tumor on his spinal cord. And there was no way this was going to turn out good in my negative thinking and in my catastrophizing, and I could predict the medical outcome of this because my Grey's Anatomy medical training had taught me that no, we weren't going to be able to handle this. So I actually had lost a lot of weight because I had to walk like miles and miles every day. When I would start to feel anxious, at least I was smart enough to walk rather than just letting this Molotov cocktail of hormones and negative chemicals in my system just, turn me inside out. But there was one day we were expecting a call from the doctor, and hi, Michelle. And my son was had some friends over, and I asked them if they would play in or go hang out in the rec room because I was a nervous wreck, and I didn't want to demonstrate that to my son and to his friends. And so the phone finally rang. I was in the kitchen, and I could see on the visual display that it was the doctor's office. And I went into the catastrophizing. I went from 0 to 1,000. I didn't even stop at 100. So quickly, I made myself sick to my stomach. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? So finally, when I was able to get a hold of my husband, because of course, nobody would tell me anything. I'm saying, please tell me. I'm freaking out here. And the nurse was saying, I'm sorry, I can't share anything. I have to speak with your husband. And of course, this just made things worse. I was sure this was, that I was starting to plan his funeral and how sad it was that I was going to be a widow and, and our child was going to be without a father. And oh, I had gone someplace really crazy. And anyway, when Brock finally did get a hold of the doctor was checking in to see how he was doing. There was no new news. There was no anything. There was no bad news. There was no good news. It was just checking in. And that's the extreme. But there's all kinds of, it's a grade that there's all kinds of steps that you go on from 0 to 100. And, I kept thinking it was a race to get to the end of overreacting. And sure enough, that's where the whole mindfulness and mindset was really critical for me. That was a transition time for me. So then the last one that I want to talk about, because as I said earlier, there are literally dozens of ways in which we create negative thinking for ourselves, and I'm just trying to create some awareness for you of some of the habits that you're into. Some of you will have some very unique and creative habits for negative thinking that negatively impacts you and how you view yourself, your world, your skills, your talents, all those kinds of things. The last one I want to talk about is the idea of black and white thinking. Is that there's lots of gray. Things are not black and they're not white. Very rarely, the odd time, but is looking at things in in bits, looking at activities in small increments. And I'm going to use the current election status in our southern friends in the States, that it is so polarized. Hi, Teresa. It is so polarized that, and part of the reason I'm intrigued is that as a mindset person, this is phenomenal learning experience, and it's history. A sad history in many ways, but it is history. And but not all. I've just gone, black and white. A large portion of Democrats and a large portion of Republicans think that if their candidate is not the successful winner, then the U.S. is bound for hell in a handbasket. And that's not necessarily true. There's lots of opportunities for both candidates. I'm being a little bit generous because I do have a preference, which I'm not going to talk about because it's not of significance. My point is that the concept of looking at things from black and white, if you find yourself doing that, you may have created some negative habits that are going to not serve you well. Okay, so I've given you 6 different ways in which these negative thinking or habits of our thinking, which are so automatic, why they call them ants, is that they just come out and they put you into a negative headspace. So I'm trying to help you reduce your negative thinking every day. And I want to just restate, when you find yourself, when you're into a situation where you're negative thinking, and I know there's a few of you that are watching that, you've got some things to think about, and it's going to be really important to not fall into some of these traps, because they are traps. So next Monday, I'm going to try to do these on Mondays between 9 and 10. I would really, it is good timing. I would really like to talk about some strategies in which to eliminate some of these habits, or to, get some solutions to minimize them. So that is my mindset minute or 16. Today, I hope that I'd love to hear your feedback, and thank you so much for joining the Support Cat and me. And I shall see you next week. Bye for now, everybody.